there, Coach Tate here with a quick update just on my own personal vlog and the running, the end of the Golden Trail series, the end of the Otter trail race. Just want to do a recap. Of course, you saw some of that great footage from South Africa, beautiful landscape. Getting to be in Cape Town for a couple of days, then going east towards Port Elizabeth, but in Nature's Valley, and running on the Otter Trail. Very amazing way to end the Golden Trail series. It was a great series. I was really happy being top 10 overall after Ring of Steel, and then getting to make that final trip. It was really lucrative. It was the first year doing the series, international competitive series. You know, I'm not gonna lie, there was a lot of money on the line, 5,000 euros just for being in the top 10, plus the incentive of getting a all expense paid trip basically to South Africa for me, and as well as a special guest, my friend Lee, who finished his first trail marathon there. You saw in the last video, he'd never run over a half marathon. He did this gnarly technical trail marathon and finished even with the heat and humidity and wearing that oversized Nathan backpack I let him borrow. And I also got a drone from Parrot. Each person in the top 10 in the Golden Trail Series got this, so shout out to Parrot for the drone. It's actually really cool. Great camera on there, great controls, portable. I'll expect more footage from that as well. And yeah, like I said, a lot of prize money online, a lot of prestige. It was the most competitive series, I believe, in the world this year for trail running. And I'll get into the details of the race and how I felt about my season overall, but I also want to cut straight to the chase here and let you guys know that I have pulled out of the Desert Solstice 100. It's the 100-miler on the track that I wanted to do. I really wanted to do it. I want to run a fast, flat ultra. I haven't really run a really flat ultra, especially 100 miles. It's always been like gnarly mountains, or Western States, I guess, isn't as mountainous as UTMB, but I've wanted to try to run fast on a flat, uniform surface and go back to my roots of road running, track running, or at least non-technical trail running, I should say. And I have had to pull out because I sustained an injury. I think I tweaked my knee, my MCL, medial, it's on the medial side of your knee, stabilizing ligament, I guess it is, or is it a tendon? Gosh, it connects, I feel like it connects bone to bone, so it should be tendon. MCL, look it up. I'm not a doctor, not a medical professional, but I think I tweaked it. I fell pretty hard on the sea rocks during the Otter Trail race in the last 3K of the race, and I kind of slipped backwards, and I also slipped and fell on some of the 7,000 stairs, and I think I tweaked my knee. I didn't even know it. I was feeling fine after the race, even traveling back. I was running on the treadmill between airport and hotel stays, and then when I got back to Boulder a couple weeks ago, I was really trying to ramp up my mileage to get ready for this 100-mile track attempt, and it just kept hurting, and I took some days off, tried to get back into it, and the pain was getting so bad it's hard to walk actually, even last week. So I was like, okay, you need to shut this down. This is pretty serious. I've never had an overuse injury take me out for more than 2 or 3 weeks at a time in my training. In my last 20 years of distance running year-round, I have kept up the streak, though, of getting blunt force injuries from falling during races, including stitches and things like that. So I consider this a blunt force injury, and actually I'm on the mend right now. I rode my bike yesterday. I pulled up the clip, cross-training on the bike. I couldn't do that the first couple of days last week because it also hurt my knee. And so I just took it really easy, didn't do anything. But because I haven't been running, I haven't been training, and that 100-mile record is 5 weeks out, I made the decision to pull out. Can't be setting a world record when you're not training very well, and you know, it's just too much to risk. I'm not willing to risk my health, and not even going to try to squeeze in any sort of racing for the rest of this season, the rest of this calendar year, I should say. So no races in November, December. Just taking a break and then slowly building up. I do have big plans for 2019 though. So yeah, I tweaked my knee, and it's always better to be safe than sorry. I'm not even 100% sure what it was. I did go and saw a doctor. I rarely see a doctor because I have a really crappy health insurance plan here in the US. For those of you on other insurance plans, let me just break it down for you. It costs probably at least $100, maybe $200 just to see a doctor after you schedule an appointment and wait for a while. And then the doctor said, okay, you want to get an x-ray for $70. We'll rule out if it's a tibial. He was worried maybe I chipped my bone at the top of my tibia, tibial head, or maybe some sort of bone chip in the knee joint. So he's like, okay, you get a $70 x-ray. And I was like, okay, I'll do that for sure. Should I get an MRI though? Because we're looking at maybe a torn meniscus. We're looking at other, any kind of tendon or soft tissue, cartilage type of tear or injury. you usually need to get more in there and see it with an MRI or something a little more elaborate. And he's like, okay, well that's going to cost you $700. So then we're looking at, okay, these visits and the MRI, looking at $1,000 just for me to get this kind of somewhat basic sports injury analysis, and that's coming right out of my pocket, $1,000. So fortunately, I had the MRI scheduled. I'm probably not going to take it now because I'm not going to do it now because my knee's already feeling a lot better. I actually feel like I could start running in the next couple of days, and I think it was just a real minor tweak and some tendonitis in the MCL. If it was a serious rip, I think I wouldn't have been able to run after the race, but I definitely wanted to be on the safe side and be cautious, and that's how it always has been for injuries with me. But cross-training on the bike, doing some core work, doing some upper body gym work just to try to stay fit and sane. But definitely pulling out of the Desert Solstice 100 mile, and I do want to try to get that record and to run a fast flat ultra, and I'll get into more runnable, faster ultras I think heading into 2019, which is more of my core competency. But to wrap up the Golden Trail Series, it tested me like no other series. Well, maybe the Skyrunning Series, that tested me for a while ago, but Golden Trail Series, really technical, iconic races, and the Otter I think was the most technical overall. People said Ring of Steel was really technical. It was for 18 miles, but Otter overall, with all the tree roots and the mud and the 7,000 stairs and running on the sea rocks and swimming across the river, the river crossings and running along the ocean, spectacular, beautiful, very, very technical. I had to watch my step. It was a marathon with over 5,000 feet of climbing. Pretty hot and humid. I got pretty dehydrated. I could have used some more Spring Energy Electro Ride, but I should have carried bigger fluid bottles. I have no excuse there. There's just one aid station in the middle of the race, really, so you had to be really smart, and I didn't get footage from the race because crew access wasn't really allowed in very many spots, plus my buddy was running the race as well, so it would have been hard to film, and I'm not carrying a GoPro in a competitive race, but I will try to get more race footage in the future for these recaps. And you know, hats off to all the people competing in the race in the Golden Trail Series. Hats off to the local South African runners that placed in the top 3, both men and women. Had local South African runners that cracked the top 10. Some guys that finished ahead of me that were really bringing their A game, and it was really impressive to see. So kudos to those guys. The trail running community in South Africa, ultra running community, is really cool. I've just had limited experience, but it seems like a really passionate group of people and some really great runners. So great hospitality, really an honor to be there and an honor to run such a special event in this nature preserve area of the Otter Trail. Didn't see any otters, but we did see some baboons and other creatures. Fortunately, no snakes, some whales from a distance, and just for me, being along the ocean is really a unique thing now because being in Colorado, I don't see the ocean as much, but it was a spectacular way to end the series. I wish I could have done a little better. I was 12th place overall and pretty far behind the winner, but I ended up 9th overall in the Golden Trail Series. And you know, guys like Killian were there, but he'd also been injured before that race after Glencoe, so he wasn't able to finish. He still ended up 3rd overall in the series with his points, but really a competitive series and a good mix. Like I said, it's a unique thing to be able to do these historic trail races like Zagama and Ring of Steel and Otter and even the Mont Blanc Marathon, Pikes Peak, because what I think people get biased in the realm of mountain ultra trail running. In the U.S., you have, you know, things are very 100-mile centric, and it's these ultra races. It's all about the U in ultra. People talk about ultra marathons, they're talking about trail running in the U.S. a lot of times. Whereas you go to other countries or you go to Europe, you know, there's other aspects of the sport of MUT, mountain ultra trail running. So, you know, in the series you could do a Cerizanal, one of the most iconic mountain races in the world. It's not an ultra marathon, it's not even a marathon, it's like 33 kilometers, right? Like 21 miles. It's some kind of oddball distance, but you're running between 2 towns. Same thing with Ring of Steel, right? It's just 18.5 miles, 18.3 miles. Who really cares? It's an epic line, big loop around some of the great mountains in Scotland. So it's not necessarily about, oh, I have to run over 26.2 miles, I have to run an ultra marathon. It could be gnarly, it could be climbing, you're using your hands, you're scrambling, it's more like sky climbing maybe, or technical rock climbing, navigating. Mountain, you have to be an all-around mountain athlete, and that's what you see with a lot of these Golden Trail Series athletes, is they're great at ski-mo, they're great skiers, they're great rock climbers, they're great all-around mountain athletes. me coming from the road running background and track, it was a humbling experience, I should say. These guys could fly down some technical trails, and you know, I'm just gonna say, like, I'll probably never be a great technical downhill runner. I'm not willing to take some of those risks. I don't have the coordination. I'm just not good at any smooth downhill in general, but when you get technical and there's mud and rocks and roots and I slip and fall and I'm clumsy, you know, I don't ski, so it's a different type of stimulus for me, but it's invigorating, and it's a big part of the sport. It's a big part of the M in MUT, right? Mountain running. It doesn't have to be an ultra marathon. It could be a vertical K. It could be, you know, a lot of these races were 26.2 miles or 42 kilometers. A lot of them were around marathons, but they weren't ultras. They weren't ultra marathons. And I think a lot of times in the US we get too biased with this, oh, you got to do 100 miles or you got to do 100K. Other people, though, you know, you go to South Africa, and it was interesting because people asked me if it was my first time to South Africa, and I was like, no, actually, I came out for Comrades in 2015, and I think a lot of the more hardcore trail people were kind of surprised to hear that. They were like, you run on the roads too? And I was like, yeah, I love Comrades. It's the largest ultra marathon in the world. It's the most competitive by far. But a lot of people maybe like far away from South Africa don't know about Comrades. And I'm going to say Comrades is an amazing event. I want to go back there. 20,000 runners doing 55 miles on pavement, right? But it's rolling hills. It's a demanding event. So there's a lot of different aspects of the sport, and I've learned that, yeah, the Golden Trail Series is great, but I got my butt kicked, and I had to race 8 marathons this year. Well, I didn't have to. I chose to race 8 marathons this year, and it was great. It was wonderful. It's always a luxury to be able to travel so much and to be able to experience these different cultures and these different courses and these different places around the world and meet so many cool people so into the sport of mountain ultra trail running and road running for that matter, right? I did road marathons, Houston, Copenhagen, Boston, and then I'm including Speed Goat in that marathon count, by the way, 8 marathons. But I also did other mountain races, shorter mountain races. I mean, I won the Shamrock Run 15K in Portland, Oregon in March. I did Mount Washington, 3rd place at Mount Washington. I did Jungfrau Marathon, that counts as part of the marathon count. Ring of Steel was not quite a marathon, but it felt like it. It was 18 miles in the really technical mud and rocks in Scotland. But yeah, I've been very, very fortunate, and I can't thank the running community, the generosity of the running community, title sponsor like Hoka One for getting me around the world. And I do feel guilty kind of as an environmental person, the carbon offset of flying so many international flights in a year. It's horrible for the environment. I'm no saint, so I do think about jet setting around the world a lot and the carbon emissions from planes, which is a huge, huge polluter. So I don't think I'm not totally ruling that out, but feel very, very fortunate, very lucky, and yeah, overcoming this injury, trying to move to 2019, and the focus, I want to race better in the big competitive races, and I want to do really well. I don't like not being on the podium. I don't like not being in contention for the overall win. I'm a very competitive person, I'm not going to lie, and so yeah, I have some big goals, and I think what I learned from doing the Golden Trail Series, it's a really cool group of people, really fun to travel around South Africa with these people. We got, you know, people from New Zealand like Ruth Croft, we had people from all over Europe, a lot of runners from Spain, France, Switzerland, you name it, the US, Megan Kimmel. It was a great group of people, Killian, really fun time. But what I've learned is that I'm probably, my skill set is still going to be more towards those runnable trails and the non-technical trails that you actually have a strong running cadence and you're running fast mile or kilometer splits. Just because it's so ingrained neuromuscularly, I think, in my development as a runner, being a runner for 20 years and starting off on the road and track. I always like cross country more too, but those weren't technical trail races. So yeah, I love the mountain stuff. I think it's really sexy to be able to do technical, gnarly stuff, but I don't like worrying about having to fall and die. I'm pretty clumsy, and it's an injury risk for me. A career-ending injury is just one step away on every single race and every single training run I do. So I do take that into account, but to do well, to pick races that are in your niche or in your wheelhouse more, I think I'm going to go back to some more runnable stuff, and I do want to keep trying some faster ultras. and I'll reveal my schedule. I guess I'm still deciding for 2019 events, but definitely with this break now, I'm gonna have to do a slow build up, and I think the break was long overdue anyway, because I've just been racing nonstop. Like I said, 8 marathons this year, plus all those other mountain races. So, you know, racing 10 times, 11 times in the last 11 months, it was a lot, and these were competitive events. So taking a step back, re-examining things, but I do want to get back to that, the runnable stuff, some of the less technical stuff, and to focus and periodize my training more on these key events, so I could actually be going for first place and not just being like, oh, I'm satisfied enough with getting points for, you know, top 5 or top 10 finish. That's not what I like to do. But wonderful experience in the Golden Trail Series. Can't thank everything that came together for that to happen. And mixing up any service, any distance is quite fun, I will say. You get the full realm and the full experience of mountain ultra trail running, and that's how I view the sport, is mountain ultra trail running, not just ultra marathons, not just road races, not just mountain technical gnarly trail events, but any surface, any distance, you get to experience a lot. And I know a lot of you like to do some road marathons too. The trails are definitely fun, beautiful landscapes, beautiful mountain landscapes, beautiful ocean landscapes. You really get to cover a lot, and I feel I can't thank you guys enough for supporting this channel and supporting my running and being a big part of how this came to be for me, this lifestyle and the privilege of being able to experience all these different races. It really comes back to the generosity in the running community and from people like you. So thank you guys. Hope your running's going well. We will get more into informative training talks. We'll go outside and film some training stuff, informative talks, so subscribe on here if you like this. Also check out our website, sagerunning.com, for training plans. Coach Danny are coming out with some new ones. We'll keep the podcast going as well, thanks to all the Patreon supporters really making that possible. The new gear, I could do a traveling podcast, things like that. So thank you guys. Hope your running's going well, and stay tuned for more VO2 Max Productions.